So this game is called Player Non-Player. It's by a developer named Jonathan Corin over in France. And this game's definitely, it's a foot in kind of like the weird art style. It's got a foot in personal relationships, trying to kind of like talk about themes of like death, consent, friendship, like love, platonic or romantic. And what we do, I'll just get it started. And let me know if the audio is too loud or too soft. Okay. Andrew says all good. So basically, the idea of this game is we create a character and we're set off onto this island that has various like brutalist structures, very like kind of open, takes a page from like open world, but on that island there are various inhabitants who we then have to basically like either befriend or like kind of like help them process things that like they're going through, and then to like maybe mild spoilers to basically send them off into either like the spirit world, like send them off to their death or learn about their death. It's very abstract in the way that it's presented. So I think a lot of that's kind of like up to the player on like how you take it. So here we are in our little character creation. This is kind of like where some of the fun silliness comes in. So I can give myself just a little waist, a nice penis, a good size. All right, beautiful. Am I right? We're looking great. We're ready to go off into the world.
Word.
All right, so here's just the initial. So yeah, there's a lot of like brutalist structures in this game, which is always fun. I'm personally a fan of brutalist aesthetics. It's got like a big oppressive kind of feel to it. And the main input that we have here is a little caress. So we have this thing, we give it a nice pet. And then we can grab objects. And then we're sent off into the world. So there's definitely many ways to interpret this game. And if anyone comes out to the showcase, I would love to hear how you interpret some of the themes that are involved in this. And so here we are, we're at the top of the world, and then we're going to come on down. Yeah, so Jonathan Corin, based out of France, he, I think he's maybe made like 1 or 2 games before, but he has like a very distinctive style. So I believe it's a little bit kind of tongue-in-cheeky, a little bit glitchy, but yeah, he develops with like a bunch of other French developers. They're pretty big in like the art scene, like in France, which is really fun to hear about because apparently they have some really like good interactive media, like new media, kind of like developers who are over there. Sorry, I'm missing this initial part. Alright, so we meet our first introductory character, and they're gonna basically show us around.
I'm immediately struck by the sense of othering with your character being made out of stone, and the next character you see is just a regular looking human, and being able to like see your feet and your arms as you walk or as you fall, just as a constant reminder of that difference.
Yeah, and I think it's like depending on how you take the themes of the game, like I kind of take that as like, well, I'm definitely like I'm not like part of them. I'm not like I'm not like a human per se, but you know, like quest wise, I've basically been given these tasks to befriend everyone on this island and help them like through their things. So almost like maybe higher power sort of thing, or just like another like helper, an outside non-observer.
So we had a couple other questions in the chat. James Cole was noting how the gameplay is both smooth and glitchy, and you were talking about the glitchiness being part of their aesthetic. Do you think that's a conscious choice? Because I really see how that helps, because it forces you to be aware. You can't just slide into the game. You stay aware that you're in a virtual experience.
Yeah, and like all the way to like I can jump like this high, and so it's you've got like a little hoverboard on here, and this map is like very large, and not to say that like I wouldn't just walk all the way down to the other side of it, like I can easily like hoverboard to it, but it's almost like putting the lens on like video games itself and being like, yeah, isn't it kind of silly that I can just jump to this height? It kind of like reminds you that we are in like a video game.
It is a good shadow, actually. That's surprising. Marcy Pratchett says, hi, Brooke, and had another comment question. These games demonstrate well that game dev can be very interpersonal. In y'all's experience, does an emotionally evocative game made by a team of people amplify or muddle the voices of the artist?
That is a good question. I mean, I think again, it's just it depends on the execution of the game and of the story and the experience. The benefit of having like a single developer is kind of like, I don't want to call it like non-collaboration, but you kind of like get a very singular like piece of it. But I have seen some really good like deeply personal games that are made by a team of people. The thing about it is just you kind of have to have like a singular like goal in mind to have this. And that's also not to say that like when people collaborate, they can't form their own like personal experience, like to create a game's themes around. But there's less restraints whenever the smaller the team is.
Of course, Eric, that's your experience in a lot of these games because you are the audio person. You're often very separate from the rest of the team. Is that how you experience as well? Because some of the games you've worked on are definitely pretty artistic.
Yeah, and like that's kind of the job of like, depending on the project, it's the job of like the helpers, like in my case for audio, to kind of like understand what the main creative lead is like trying to say. And even like on the current project that I'm on, it's very much kind of like, if you don't know what story you're trying to tell, even in just the audio space, like you can go to the creative lead and kind of be like, hey, I have an idea, like what if it sounded like this? And they can be like, like that idea, but it's not quite the story that I want to try and like say for this specific thing. And then so then you kind of collaborate on like the central idea.
I really hope we get Jesse or Duff Jacobson in here. They have a game in the Museum of Modern Art in New York right now.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And done by small teams, and it's very interesting because they managed to keep everyone kind of within the artistic focus of the team, even if it's primarily the lead's vision. I mean, games done well are very much not just an interactive experience, but they're an interactive process. You don't do well having a programmer work on a game who can't give their input about how they could best develop something. So,
Yeah. And yeah, I think like a lot of really good ideas can also come from collaboration. Like maybe if you're making something but you don't really know the right words for it or like the right music, maybe you're like, oh, maybe, you know, we have this track A playing on this scene, but like maybe you get a musician who is kind of like, what about this? And they can then show you like, oh, no, like I resonate way more with track B that you made rather than A, which I placed in here. And so, yeah, there's like, not to sound like a broken record, but you know, everything's kind of relative, and it just really depends on what the outcome is, and hopefully
I'd like to add
you can do. Yeah.
Do it, bro.
I don't think like the kind of personalness is really necessarily tied to if it's made by one person or a small group, but really a matter of how much love is put into it. I've made games that I really loved that felt very personal. I've made and seen stuff that is less personal and still quality and good in other ways, but you can feel kind of like the lack of intimacy within the game.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that as well. Sorry, I got distracted because
You're having an adventure.
I was dragging this person. But yeah, no, I think like there's so many different ways to make a game and to make the story that you want to make. And like if you're having collaborators, it's good to have like a good personal relationship with them, so that way like you can see eye to eye to help remove any kind of like friction of like, I don't know, whether if it's like ego or like I don't know, like not taking any risks, but like to have like a safe space to either take the risks that you need to take or kind of like just talk about the same thing, like what you're trying to make.
And to go with what Brooke was saying, I've worked on games that we were aiming for both commercial success and artistic success. And it is interesting with that small team, keeping everyone trying to go to their artistic best. In our case, of course, it was tabletop games, Vampire, and trying to have the writing, the player experience, the art, the graphic design, all of them combine to create an experience that would both succeed emotionally and financially. Now, and I will not say we manage the things that Eric talked about, the team working together, avoiding friction, etc. So it is fascinating how sometimes that creative process can come out of a group that is not necessarily working well together. We've seen that with bands as well that have done great work while they were falling apart. It's another good metaphor, or another good analogy. So Eric, how is this game making you feel?
This game makes me feel wonderfully confused, you know, like that kind of surreal space that you get when you're kind of confronted with the really like kind of the unknown, or like I don't want to say like unsettling, but when you have, you know, a really elongated pool in this what looks like a meteor landscape. You know, you're just feeling a little bit vulnerable and just wanting to just understand what's going on.